Now, you were actually arrested in October of '06. Is that right? The 28th. And where were you arrested? I was arrested in Marietta, in Georgia. And just prior to that, had you any altercation or incident in the airport? Yes, I did. Tell us about what happened at the airport. Well, I was coming back from having a meeting with the underboss or assistant to Terry Flannery in Miami. And who is this? This is Eric Bivens. And because, see, normally what we do at the end of the month is we can't give the physical reports over the phone. You can't sit back and say, okay, I paid $200,000 in this and we paid $40,000 in rents. So what we have, let me ask you about that. You said you can't do that over the phone. Why can't you do it over the phone? First of all, that was a mandate set down by Terry that you don't talk about any money over the phone because what we're doing is illegal. You know, it's not like we have receipts to be able to vouch for what we're doing. You said what we're doing. What do you mean by what you're doing? Actually selling drugs in quantities, cars, and actually getting these home units as well. So Terry Flannery basically said, we're not going to talk about illegal stuff, the drugs and cars over the phone, or we'll go to jail. Now, I'm sorry I interrupted you. You said you had been stopped at the airport and you had been down to see Mr. Bivens. What happened after that? Well, after that particular point, I had to prepare a report, and so they know the accountability of what the money was spent. Because what would happen is that I would normally receive about 30 kilos from Eric Bivens for Terry Flannery, and that would be just for mathematical purposes, that would be about $600,000. Once I sold those drugs, I may have $200,000 or $300,000 in just bills that need to get paid for the family. So I would have to deduct that out of the money, or I would take that out of the drug proceeds to pay for these various things. So the drugs that you were selling, you would take the cash from that to pay the family's bills? Right. And then the balance would. The balance after I took out what my percentage was for selling them, the balance would actually be prepared to be picked up to be taken back to California. So say you got $200,000 back in drug proceeds. They had $50,000 in bills. So you're left with $150,000? Right. What was your percentage of that? Maybe $50,000, just to say. So that would leave us with $100,000, and that's what would be picked up and taken back to the family? Right. So how did you make this reporting? How did you keep track of the balance sheets or whatever? Well, we actually, in the beginning, we kind of jotted it down. I would make a notation or write everything down, but most cases they would be on an Excel spreadsheet, that you would have. A lot of times I would, but this particular case coming back from the airport was something that he said that he needed to meet right away. So I had to actually handwrite it and put everything together. Okay, I'm going to show you what I have marked as Government's Exhibit 11. Do you recognize that? Yes, I do. Is that your handwriting? Yes, it is. Your Honor, we'd offer Government's Exhibit 11 into evidence. No objection. It's admitted. What is this Government's Exhibit 11? That's just a handwritten list of different bills that were actually pages of different breakdowns of what it was, the items that you have there. Right here? Yes. What's this? The items that you have there are going to be, it's coded on how I have it for the vehicles. Like it says, 2 X5s, 60. That's $60,000. Okay. And it says, warehouse done 67? Right. What's that? It means one of the warehouses that we were buying to hold the vehicles and to put the cocaine in the cars and everything else, we had purchased a warehouse and the balance was $67,000. Now, you've got the ends over here. What's that column? That's automobile insurance. What's the 300C over here? That's the 300C Chrysler. It says $10,000 that was needed to complete that. And you've got the investment column here. What's this? Well, the investment column would be, that's actually money that needed to be put down. So that's money that you have to invest into the balance. Like it was 22 invested, 60 of the total needed. So from doing the figures like that, I would know that 38,000 is what I have to pick up. Okay, that's 60 less 22, basically. Would be 38. So you've got 22 and you still need to get to 38. Is that what you're saying? I got 22, still needed to get to 38, which at that particular point, I got it. So I would just mark done on it. Now, this says old balance over here. What is this over here? Like it's got 43,364, right? Old balance would be where things were left off from. Like I'm going to 43,000 would be the balance that, I guess where I had to start off from. If you notice there's a minus there, which means that on the last shipment of drugs, they owe me 43,000. So I had to start them off from the beginning and say, okay, I put my money up. So 43,000 is going to come off the top. Let's say it was for 200,000. He's not going to have a clear 200,000 because he had a previous balance up on the credit card, past due balance or past due payment was minus 43 left off from the last invoice. So you're basically rolling over the balance from the last time, right? So we can be brought up to date. And then you have underneath that $5,000 in airplane flights. You're going to have $37,000 for Texas home. And it's kind of hard for me to see what it says in parentheses. I'll show you the original. All right. It says 28,000 TX. Right. So that would be one location that's actually in Texas that we were looking to buy. So that was the money that was put down for that. So is it fair to say that these are all expenses for what? Yeah, you got the family or for different things? Yeah, for the family. You see it says phone bill for the T's kids, 1,000. Here? Uh-huh. And then right below that, you have 52,000. That was for the daycare that we were buying in Atlanta. So you were actually buying an actual daycare, not just paying for the kids there? No, we was buying a daycare center. Now, is this just a continuation down here of all the expenses up here? This whole side right here? Right. Most of the dates are on. You have 10,000 for travel that was actually airplane flights. 10,000 travel, 4,000 travel, 5,000 travel. You have there further up. And then you have, if you get down towards the bottom, you see some of the guys' names. Those were the workers. Right here? Uh-huh. Now, what's this over here? It says 745, 30, 3100, and 17. All right. The 745 is a car. 30,000 is what was collected. 3,100 is going to be the insurance. 17,000 is what needs to be collected. And you've got Freak under here with 5,000 next to it. Freak owed 5,000 because he had gotten an F-150 Harley Davidson truck edition. That's the balance he needed. Who's Freak? Do you know what his real name is? I do not. Was he a member of the BMF? Yes. What side of the BMF was he on? He was a Terry guy. And then you've got ill right here. Correct. And 40,000 with 1,500 and Nextel written. What does that mean? Right. 4,000 was for what he owed back on his vehicle note that was actually put out. And 1,500 was what he owed on his Nextel bills. And this was basically a balance sheet for 1 month that you were giving to Eric Bivens, which is the Terry side, right? Yeah, it had both in there because I got Meech stuff in here, like the Corvette is Meech's. The Corvette flight, is that what you're talking? No, you see where it says Corvette 30,000? Right here? Yeah, that's Meech's Corvette. And where it says right there, miscellaneous, it says white X5. And where it says the black X5, the black X5, that was Ill's X5. And then we have food, travel, and flights. So it was kind of a combined sheet that I would actually once again break down and separate it again for the two families. All right, sir. Now, were you the one that was always doing this, or did you have someone else that you eventually got to do this? Yeah, because, my way, I could do it where nobody would understand it. But it also worked. It worked backwards. Nobody could understand it. So if I told them to grab the sheet and read it off to me, they couldn't really explain it too well. So I went ahead and converted over to an Excel spreadsheet, because when I used to hand my sheets in to Terry or Meech, they would be like, just give it to me simple. So instead of doing it coded this way, I went ahead and just gave them just a plain spreadsheet. Now, you have a brother named Kareem Sheard, right? Correct. Did you ever get him involved? Yeah, he normally did all the spreadsheets. I wound up getting too busy, so he wound up taking care of a lot of, getting cars and everything else for those of the family that still wanted them. I'm going to show you Government's Exhibit number 16-A. Do you recognize that? Yeah. Is that someone that you know? Yes, I do. How do you know this individual? We have the same mother. Your Honor, we would offer Government's Exhibit 16-A into evidence. No objection. It's admitted. Who is this? That's Kareem Sheard. That's your brother? Uh-huh. Now it says Hassan Sheard here. Is that his real name? It's Kareem Hassan Sheard. So did your brother ever live in Tennessee? No. Is this his real identification? No. But that is his real picture? Yes. Now, when you look at this ledger and you mentioned that there was an ill listed on there, I believe that was the $4,000, and you had a car payment on this? Uh-huh. Who is that ill? Mr. Daniels right there. I'm sorry? That's Mr. Daniels right there. So that's the defendant? Uh-huh. So you know an individual by the name of Ralph Sims? Uh-huh. How do you know him? I know him from actually being over at the elevator. In whose house was the elevator? That was Meech's and Terry's. Was it always just both their house? Yeah. I'm going to show you what's already been admitted into evidence. There's two things here. I want to know if you know who this person is. Yes, I do. Who is that? That's Fleming Daniels. That's ill. But it's a Tennessee driver's license with the name Paul Jackson? Uh-huh. That person in the picture is who you know as ill? Correct. What about that picture? Who is that person? That's ill. It's just another name that he used to use. And that's under the name Shamir Moore? Correct. Have you ever heard him use that name before, other than on the driver's license? Yes, correct. When did he use that name? I believe actually Kareem was actually doing some smaller cars for him. I know Kareem asked me if he wanted to start to build credit up underneath that name. I'm not sure whether he went ahead and did it. He had gotten from my brother a couple of smaller cars, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and he actually came to me about it, and I just said I was tied up. Kareem would take care of it for him. The last one. Do you know who this individual is? Yes, I do. Who is that? I know him by Lou Da Vinci. And it's got the name Jason Robinson. Have you ever heard him use that name before? Not other than when we went to go. Did you go with him to get this driver's license? No, but I actually, choreographed it, you could say. Tell us what you mean by choreographed it. Just basically set everything up because I was the initial one who placed contact with a gentleman by the name of Terry Bowles down in Tennessee. And I will let him know, here's the names, here's the information. Here's the names, here's the information, because we would have to get the social security numbers for that. And I will give him the information, and they can get on the road and go straight to him. And once he received them, he would finish it from there. Your Honor, we'd offer Government's Exhibit 19-A. No objection. It's admitted. That's all I have, Your Honor.